Welcome to Lifepoint, 10 a.m. So good to have you guys with us this morning. Sorry to be in a good morning here at Lifepoint. If you are new to the place, we just want to give you an extra special welcome. My name is Dan. I'm the senior pastor here at this church, and this is the time that we open up the Bible and we see what God might have to say to us from His Word today. And I really believe God has a word just for you. I actually came to this school, Grace Lutheran College. Do we have any other people here that came to Grace College? Any alumni? Yes. The intelligent people in the room, no booze, okay. The Grace people. I came here. We didn't have this building when I was here many, many years ago. I used to get to school on a horse, which is interesting. No, I didn't. Where our Lifepoint kids are, just out there, we used to have a thing called chapel on Tuesday mornings in period 1. And I was asked once at chapel in year 11 to lead the worship, so to lead the music just like we had before. And I chickened out because basically none of my friends were Christian. And I have sat in chapels when everyone's paying out the people at the front going, what are they doing up there? And I'm like, that could be me. I don't want to be the guy at the front that everyone is laughing at. And I'm ashamed to admit that I said no. Now, I know I'm meant to be a pastor. These days it seems so embarrassing to admit that. But I was like, I can't handle the peer pressure of standing up for my faith and saying, yeah, I'm a Christian, I'm going to lead you in worship. Until a girl named Rachel at Brackenridge Baptist Church, the church I grew up in, she came up to me after one of the services and she used to play piano in the band. So everyone was laughing at her, which is really sad. And she came up to me and she said, Dan, I know you can sing and play guitar. We need you. Why aren't you playing? And I'm like, I'm busy. I've got lots of things on at the moment, study. I'm really just embarrassed. I used to actually hide out the back of chapel. I wouldn't even go into the chapel. I was so terrified. Please don't judge me. And then Rachel said something I'll never forget. She said, why don't you take a stand for what you believe in? And she got me. All right. The next Tuesday, I got there early to school. We had a rehearsal, and I stood up in front of the entire Grace Year 11 cohort and sung with all my might, "Shine, Jesus, shine," because that was an old song even then. If you don't know anything about church, it's one of the more lame songs, okay? But at the time, it was cutting edge. All right. Today, I want to talk to you, friends, about taking a stand for what you believe in. Taking a stand, if you're a Jesus follower, for your faith. So here's my challenge. Will you go to your workplace this week? Will you go to your neighbor's house this week? I want you to stand up, and with all of your might, I want you to look him in the eye, and I want you to sing, "Shine, Jesus, shine." Shine, Jesus, shine. You probably don't know the song, but that's how it goes. We're going to win Australia. I can already see it. This week's going to be 6 services because of all the "Shine, Jesus, shine." Maybe not. You could try it. I wouldn't recommend it. But what does it look like to take a stand for what you believe in today? All right? You might not have to get up at a school chapel. Probably might be pretty easy these days. But what is it for you? What does it mean to stand up in a hostile culture, in a foreign culture? Because if you are a Jesus follower today, I don't know, many of you are. As we found out last week in the book of Daniel, you're actually an exile. You're a foreigner living in a foreign land. You're not an Australian. You're a citizen of heaven first. So what does it look like to live in a foreign culture, to engage well, and when do you take a stand? We are in Daniel chapter 3 right now, this morning. The story so far, Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're Jewish exiles. They're a bunch of a cohort of strapping, young, intelligent men that have been taken from Jerusalem into Babylon, and they're being trained up as Babylonians. And they're doing a great job. They're faithfully engaging with their culture. They're loving their culture. They're learning about their culture. In many ways, they're becoming Babylonian. But there's a time coming where they have to take a stand. They've actually risen to the elite. They are not just like regular Babylonians. They've learnt what they need to learn. They've decided that, hey, we're going to do this really, really well. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they're like the top of the elite class. And Daniel, he's now like the Lord Mayor of all of Babylon. But they're still, first and foremost, followers of Yahweh. And there comes a tipping point. We're going to see it here today in Daniel chapter 3. So let's read it. Verse 1. King Nebuchadnezzar, he's the king of Babylon, made an image of gold, 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Okay, cubits, no one knows what that means. It's about 30 meters high. All right, so picture like 4 times the height of that. Huge, big gold statue. We don't know what it was of. It might have been of Nebuchadnezzar. It might have been of Baal, which is the god of Babylon, or it might have been of Marduk or Nego. They had all these different gods. We're not sure. But here's the important part. Verse 4. Nebuchadnezzar gets everyone together, and the herald loudly proclaimed, "Nations and peoples of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipe, all kinds of music," some good instruments there, "you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace." These Yahweh followers in a hostile culture are doing pretty well. They're doing fine. Until there comes a tipping point. Until it comes a time when the culture of Babylon and the culture of God's people go bam. Here's what we need to learn, all right? Here's the big message for today. It's for them and for us. The dominant culture of every age will demand that you bow down to worship its gods. The culture of every age, and it doesn't matter if you're a Jesus follower here or not, the dominant culture in Australia is going to ask that you bow down, and when I say worship, make what everyone else in Australia thinks is the most important thing your most important thing. Center your life around love. Make the ultimate thing in your life that's going to bring you joy and salvation and goodness and hope. Make that the same as everyone else in Australia. It's happening to you all week. We can be Australians, but what happens when Australia asks us to bow down to its gods? That's the question. So what are they in Australia? What are the big gods that are tempting you to bow down? It's a big question. You should reflect about that. Tim Keller, he says this in this great book called Counterfeit Gods. The human heart is an idol factory that takes good things like a successful career, love, material possessions, even family, and turns them into ultimate things. Our hearts deify them as center of our lives because we think they can give us significance and security. What is it in Aussie culture, you reckon, that are the ultimate things? My wife Steph and I, Steph was up here singing before, we love camping, all right? Speaking about good things in Australia. Any campers here today? Anyone that love camping? Yes. Looking good. We love you. Camping is awesome. I've camped for many, many years. I didn't grow up camping, but I got told when I married Steph, you are going to be camping now. And my first experience was awful. I'm like, why are we doing this? No one's making us do this. We could just live in a house. Why are we on the ground? But I did it and I've come to absolutely love it. But I don't really camp anymore. I kind of do more glamping now because we bought like a camper trailer. I've got running water now. I've actually got a hot water system inside my camper trailer. So I've got running hot water, okay? So you're all judging me. I'm not camping anymore. The other day, Steph and I, just for fun, for funsies, we decided, actually we went with Jason and Heidi as well, our executive pastor, and we went into the Brisbane Caravan and Recreational Vehicle Show. It was spectacular. My goodness, what a beautiful time. Some of you are shaking your heads. It was so fun. They got the glossy brochures. You get to go inside all the caravans. There's so many. It's incredible. And the cost. Everyone, camping's nice and cheap. No, it's not. It's like $200,000 to get one of these caravans. It's so crazy. It's wild. And it was a beautiful time, and I love camping. I think it's a wonderful thing. But I noticed 2 things while we were there that day. The first thing I noticed is we were about 30 years too young to be here. It was like grey hair everywhere. Everyone's like, oh, you're here with your grandparents or something. The second thing is, it's a bit more dangerous. I felt something happening to me in the temple of caravans. I felt something happen to my heart. As I looked at these brochures and I walked around these caravans and I saw photos of people having a spectacular life, I began to go, I finally worked out what I really need. I need freedom. I need the open road. I need no people holding me back. I need no responsibility and stress and pressure. I just want beaches and barbecues, and just whenever I get sick of something, I can just hook up my caravan and go. Now that's a good life, right? Some of you are dreaming about it right now. You're like, yeah, preach it. Like something started to happen in my heart. Like this is what life is really all about. If I just had this, and I thought about my regular life with its responsibility and its annoying people. I'm not talking about you. And I'm like, oh, that's not the good life. Here's the good life. And I'm not trying to be like over-exaggerating here, but something happened in my heart saying, would you bow down and worship? Would you make this the ultimate thing in your life? And on the way back, I said to Steph, this reminds me of a guy named Francis Schaeffer, who was a brilliant pastor in the 1970s. And he said, he prophetically predicted, I reckon, that the twin gods of Western culture are going to be two things. The gods of Western culture for the next few years, he thought, were going to be personal peace and affluence. And I think he's pretty right. And that's what a caravan represented in that moment for me. I could be personally peaceful and having no one bothering me. And I could be affluent and have it in a really rich way and have all the gadgets and have all the things. Schaeffer says personal peace means not to be troubled by the troubles of other people, whether across the world or across the city. It means to live one's life with minimal possibilities of being personally disturbed. And affluence means an overwhelming and ever-increasing prosperity. A life made up of things, and more things. I reckon he was on point. Do you reckon he was right? This is what the last 50 years have looked like in the West. This is what has promised peace. This is what has promised goodness. This is what has promised salvation. This has been the main point of living, is to try and get to a point where you can be completely at peace in yourself and your family, and you can have all the things that you think you need. How's it going? How's it going? The weird thing is, the more we seem to go after these gods, the less we seem to have them. Like right now, there's a crisis. And you can almost feel it in Australia. Post-COVID, you can feel this like lack of hope. And the lack of hope is coming from the fact that we're looking for personal peace and we've never been more anxious. And we're looking for affluence and there's like a cost of living crisis going on. We can't find them. These gods are failing us, and yet we still desperately want them. This should not be. It almost feels, let's have to think about gods, false gods, is that when you don't have them, it feels like a blazing furnace. This is what Nebuchadnezzar says. Whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. And the question is, friends, if you are a follower of Jesus here today, will you center your life around Jesus Christ, bowing to Him, serving Him in all things? Or will the most important thing in your life be personal peace and affluence? Which one? So what do? Well, let's have a look at what they do. So word gets out that everyone's following the rules. Like everyone in Australia is following the rules. Everyone in Babylon's following the rules, except for God's people. And Nebuchadnezzar's so angry, and he gets Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and he's like, surely not. He's just furious with rage. Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar said to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold that I have set up? And you'll notice in the passage, it keeps repeating their name over and over again. Because Babylon gave them new names, and their new names mean worship Aku, which is Ak, Meshach, Shadrach, or worship Nego, which is another demonic god that they're asking them, Abednego. He's like, they keep repeating, this is who you are. You're meant to be Babylonian. Just like me walking around the caravan show. You're meant to be Australian. This is meant to be your God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, King Nebuchadnezzar, they're very polite. We do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, The God we serve is able to deliver us from it. And he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. Here's a really interesting thing. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. We will live in Babylon, and we will love Babylonian people. We will love you, we will learn, we will be named after your gods, but we will not serve your gods. They refuse. We won't do it. We will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold that you have set up. They're prepared to face the burn. They're prepared to feel the heat. And it's very clear what the punishment is, because remember they had all the band going and telling everyone what's going to happen. The zither was, busted out. They're like, we know what's going to happen here. We know you're going to throw us into the furnace. We are prepared to feel the heat. Now I was thinking, what does the heat look like to follow Jesus in Australian culture? Because for them it was very clear, furnace. And to be honest, in many cultures all around the world, in this very moment, if you say, I'm going to follow Jesus, you will be killed. Or you're going to be put in prison. Or your family will be like, whoa, we can't even talk to you anymore. Like, it's such a huge personal cost. But kind of like in Australia, we often don't feel that there is as much of a cost. In fact, sometimes it can feel like there's really no cost at all, which is quite dangerous. Because we're worshiping a completely different God than everyone else in Australia. So I was thinking, what does it actually look like to feel the burn of not worshipping personal peace and affluence, not worshipping Australia's gods? I did some brainstorming this week. I came up with 18 things, okay? You might have 80. There's a whole lot of things I'm going to miss here, but I just want to read through this list and maybe just get you to think, hey, this is, let's just feel the cost here for a moment. I bet there was a meeting where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were like, are we doing this? Should we just bow? Are we actually going to do this? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. It's going to be hot, I think. Yeah, we should do it. Let's have that moment together. Are we in? Is this what we're actually signing up for, to follow Jesus? This is a few. Feeling financial strain. Living with less because you're giving sacrificially instead of pursuing comfort and luxury. Pushback and stress for addressing social or workplace wrong that other people prefer to ignore. Loss of acceptance from both political sides by promoting kingdom values instead of partisan loyalty, okay? You're not going to fit neatly into a political party because Jesus doesn't fit into a political party. You're not left or right. We are Jesus followers. And that might actually get you rejected sometimes because you're like, you think that? But you should think this. Conflict with other parents, families, schools, because you are bringing your kids up and living with countercultural biblical principles. You might seem weird. Feeling socially left out because you're not following and watching all the cultural entertainment trends. You're not up with it, maybe. Awkwardness, rejection, risking relationships or your reputation because you openly talk about Jesus and you invite others to discover faith in Christ. That's a big threshold moment when you start to do that everywhere that you go. Being seen as intolerant in conversations on some sensitive topics because it contrasts with biblical truth. Feeling vulnerable because you're confessing your sin to a close friend. No one does this. No one uncovers the darkness within them to let the light in, except for people that follow Jesus. Having less leisure time because you are committed to attend and serve in your church and in your community. That is a big one. Investing in relationships with people you wouldn't naturally choose as church family transcends personal preference. I know you didn't choose everyone in your small group, okay? And that's a beautiful thing. Career setbacks, job losses for being openly Christian. For single people, there's a smaller pool of people for romantic relationships. Unwanted singleness can be a really difficult burden to carry. feeling restricted by submitting to community accountability or biblical authority in a society that idolizes personal autonomy. Are you with me? You still with me? Okay, let's keep going. Enduring emotional pain when choosing to forgive instead of seeking revenge or harboring bitterness and gossiping about it, which is seemingly what everyone else in Australia is doing. Being seen as extreme or weird because you live modestly compared to others. Rejecting consumerism, rejecting unrealistic and evil images of beauty. People looking at you and saying, oh, you don't look beautiful because you've rejected society's standards of beauty. Enduring ridicule for upholding biblical views on marriage and family in a culture that actually sees biblical sex and family as harmful sometimes. Being seen as lazy because you resist hustle mentality and workaholism because you honor the Sabbath and you prioritize rest as worship. And lastly, choosing spiritual disciplines. They disturb your personal peace and comfort. Fasting, tithing, prayer, service. These all disturb our comfort. Loving those that don't deserve to be loved. Feel the burn. Just a few of the I thought of this week. What is it in your life? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was losing their entire life. But sometimes in Australian culture, if we don't realize it's going to be a cost, it can feel like there's no cost at all. And if there's no cost at all to following Jesus, you're probably not following him. Like if there's no moment where you actually have to say, I'm not bowing down to culture, you're probably just going along with culture. Jesus is calling us today, Lifepoint, to say this to Australia. I love you, but I will not serve your gods. There's nothing in it. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they refuse to bow. And what happens to them? Nebuchadnezzar says, don't worry about it. You guys are cool. No, it doesn't happen. There's a cost, and they have to feel the cost. They are literally chucked into the fire. King Nebuchadnezzar leapt to his feet. He chucks them in, okay? He chucks them in the furnace. And something really interesting happens. This is in verse 24. He leapt to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors. He's looking into the furnace. It's burning up. It says in the story, if you read it, it was so hot that the soldiers that chucked them in, they died, okay? Ancient culture really doesn't have much of a sanctity of human life. Like the soldiers died. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are in there. He's squinting into the furnace. Weren't there 3 men we tied up and threw into the fire? They replied, certainly, Your Majesty. Whatever you say, Your Majesty. And he said, look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire, unbound and unharmed. And the 4th looks like a son of the gods. Something incredible happened. See, for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, you don't see when you read this story this sense of it's going to cost me, but I better do it. I'm a good Christian. All right, I better do what Christians do. Really annoying, but I'm going to have to do it. Or I'm going to grit my teeth. I'm going to do the right thing. You don't sense that in the story. You sense this non-anxious presence. You sense this beautiful faith. Now, I'm sure they might have been shaking a little bit as they said it. But Your Majesty, my God can deliver me. My God is with me. My God can offer me way more than your gods. My goodness. You want peace? Come to my God. He's the God of peace. You want affluence that actually lasts forever? Come to my God. He's got it. I'm not going to bow to you. There's nothing in it. There's nothing there. You see almost a confident joy in the middle of an incredibly anxious situation. Even if I don't get out, my God's going to be with me. There's literally a 4th man in the fire. Now, some people say this is an angel. Some scholars have said it's Jesus himself. It's like a pre-incarnate Jesus there in the fire with them. Not sure which one, but I know this. God may not take the cost away. He may not take the furnace away. He may not take the burn away, but he does promise to always be with us. The last thing Jesus said, truly, I'm going to be with you till the very end of age. He said, you're going to have trouble in the world. Don't be surprised. We're so surprised when trouble comes. I shouldn't be disturbed. I shouldn't have my personal peace and my affluence disturbed. Jesus says, yes, you will, all the time. But I'm going to be with you. They get out in this story. In the very next verse we see in this story, they get out. Not everyone in history has got out, by the way. Well, they've got out the other way. They didn't get out the front door and got out of the furnace. They went out the back door and they went to be with Jesus forever. There's a guy some of the time during the Reformation. His name's John Bradford. Apparently, he was at the stake, and he said this to his mate. He was getting burnt because he decided to preach that we're saved by grace alone. He said, "Be of good comfort, brother, for we shall have a merry supper with the Lord this night." I don't know where it is where God's saying to you, hey, don't bow down. For some of you, you've been doing this for many years, and God's like, good job, well done, continue. Do not bow at the feet of false gods, because there's nothing there. Come to me. Come to me. I will give you everything you need. I'll be with you in the fire if you trust me. So let's come to him right now.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did and you want more Lifepoint content, subscribe to our channel right now. Or if you're in the area around Moreton Bay or Rothwell, head to our service. Sunday, we'd love to see you there. lifepoint.org.au for all the details. We'll see you soon.